The impossible puzzle. First Officer Maya Chen stood at the viewport of the ESS Curiosity, staring out at the massive structure that housed the headquarters of the Galactic Confederation. The station hung in space like an elaborate jewel, its crystalline spires and interwoven habitation rings glittering against the starfield. Behind her, Captain Rice cleared his throat. "Nervous, Chen?" Maya turned, offering a tight smile. "Not nervous, sir. Just processing. Humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Confederation after our invitation. It's a lot to take in." Reyes nodded. "We're representing all of Earth out here. The Confederation has been watching us since we achieved faster-than-light travel. Now we've got a seat at the table." "A junior seat," Maya corrected. "They still view us as technological infants." "Then let's show them what Earth's infants can do," Reyes said with a wink. The diplomatic team consisted of 12 humans, scientists, diplomats, engineers, and military personnel. Maya, with her dual background in theoretical physics and practical engineering, had been selected for her problem-solving reputation. What she hadn't expected was to become the center of a galactic upheaval. The Confederation Hall of Assembly was a cavernous chamber that could accommodate representatives from over 300 species. The diplomatic team from Earth was escorted to a small section reserved for newly admitted civilizations. High Elder Zaxos, a towering avian being with shimmering plumage that shifted colors as he moved, addressed the assembly from the central platform. His translated voice echoed throughout the chamber. "We welcome our newest members, the humans of Earth, to this gathering. As is tradition, they will be granted access to our knowledge repositories and invited to contribute to ongoing Confederation projects." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Maya noticed several delegates exchanging what appeared to be amused glances. Ambassador Lai, the head of Earth's delegation, stood and bowed respectfully. "We are honored to join the Confederation and eager to learn from your collective wisdom. Humanity offers its unique perspective and problem-solving abilities in return." High Elder Zaxos' head tilted slightly, his feathers shifting to a shade of blue that Maya would later learn indicated polite skepticism. "Indeed," Zaxos said. "Speaking of problem-solving, perhaps you would like to observe our most prestigious ongoing research project. The Nexus Cipher has challenged our greatest minds for over 3,000 years." Maya felt a tap on her shoulder and turned to find Dr. Patel, the delegation's senior scientist, leaning toward her. "This is unusual," he whispered. "The Cipher project is highly classified. Normally, new species aren't granted access for at least a decade." Maya frowned. "Then why offer it now?" Dr. Patel's expression was grim. "I suspect they want to put us in our place." The Cipher Research Center occupied an entire wing of Confederation headquarters. As the human delegation was led through its corridors, Maya noticed the reverent atmosphere. Alien scientists of various species worked in hushed concentration, their attention focused on complex holographic displays and arcane equipment. At the center of the main research hall stood a floating object that defied easy description. Approximately 2 meters in diameter, it resembled a sphere composed of interlocking geometric shapes that shifted and reconfigured themselves in subtle patterns. Its surface gleamed with a metallic luster that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. "Behold the Nexus Cipher," announced their guide, a serpentine being named Fisk. Discovered in the ruins of the precursor civilization, it is believed to contain knowledge that could revolutionize our understanding of the cosmos. Maya stepped closer, fascinated by the object's complexity. "What exactly does it do?" Fisk's multifaceted eyes blinked in sequence. "We do not know. All attempts to activate it have failed. Our best theories suggest it may be a repository of precursor scientific knowledge, possibly even the coordinates to their home world." "And you've been trying to solve it for 3,000 years?" Captain Rice asked. 3,247 standard years, corrected Fisk. "The greatest minds from every Confederation species have contributed to the effort." Maya circled the object slowly. "What approaches have you tried?" "Every conceivable methodology," Fisk replied with evident pride. We have applied quantum decryption algorithms, psychic resonance scanning, temporal phase analysis, reality matrix recalibration. As Fisk listed dozens more esoteric techniques, Maya continued to study the cipher. Something about it seemed oddly familiar, though she couldn't place why. May I? She asked, gesturing toward the object. Fisk hesitated. Observe, yes. But the cipher is extremely delicate. Only certified researchers are permitted physical interaction. Maya stepped back respectfully, but continued her visual examination. The patterns of movement, the way the geometric shapes interlocked and shifted, she had seen something similar before. Has anyone ever tried to align the patterns manually? She asked. The question prompted confused looks from the alien researchers nearby. Manual alignment would be impossible, responded a bulbous being working at a nearby console. The mathematical complexity of the pattern sequences exceeds. No, I mean physically adjusting the components. Maya interrupted. Like a puzzle box. The silence that followed was profound. Ambassador Lai shot Maya a warning glance, clearly concerned she was embarrassing the delegation. Fisk's scales rippled in what Maya would later learn was the equivalent of condescending amusement. The cipher is not a primitive mechanical device, human. It operates on principles far beyond physical manipulation. Maya bit her lip, not wanting to cause a diplomatic incident on their first day. But she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was overthinking the problem. That evening, as the human delegation discussed their observations in their assigned quarters, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the cipher. I still think it looks like a puzzle box, she insisted, similar to those complex ones from Japan. What are they called? Karakuri boxes. Chen, drop it, Ambassador Lai warned. We're not here to suggest that 3,000 years of Confederation research could be undone by treating their most sacred artifact like a children's toy. Maya sighed. With respect, Ambassador, what if that's exactly what it is? The precursors might have had a different approach to security than we do. Maybe the complicated solution isn't always the right one. Lee's expression softened slightly. I understand your enthusiasm, but we need to tread carefully. We're new here, and we don't want to offend our hosts. Of course, Ambassador, Maya conceded, but the idea wouldn't leave her alone. The next morning, the delegation was invited back to the research center for a formal presentation on the history of cipher research, as various alien scientists detailed the increasingly complex methods they had attempted over millennia. Maya's attention kept drifting back to the object itself. During a brief recess, she found herself alone near the cipher, while most of the delegates and researchers were engaged in conversation across the room. Almost without thinking, she stepped closer to the floating artifact. Looking around quickly to ensure no one was watching, Maya reached out and gently touched one of the protruding geometric shapes. To her surprise, it moved slightly under her touch. There was a barely audible click. Heart racing, she pulled her hand back immediately. Had she damaged it? But the cipher continued its subtle movements, apparently unchanged. When the delegation reconvened with their hosts, Maya made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Excuse me, she said, raising her hand during a pause in the presentation. I have a theory about the cipher that I'd like to share. Ambassador Lai gave her a sharp look, but it was too late. Fisk turned to her, head tilted in curiosity. You have developed a theory after less than 1 day of observation. Maya swallowed hard. I believe the cipher might be a mechanical puzzle. The shifting patterns aren't encryption. They're physical components that need to be aligned in the correct sequence. The room erupted in a mixture of translated exclamations that the human delegates' communication devices struggled to keep up with. Some sounded amused, others offended. High Elder Zaxos, who had joined the session, raised a wing for silence. His plumage had shifted to a deep purple. An interesting hypothesis, human. Though I must point out that we have conducted molecular scans of the cipher. There are no detectable moving parts. Not in the conventional sense, Maya agreed. But when I observed it yesterday, I noticed that the patterns shift in response to proximity. And just now, she hesitated, then pushed forward. I touched one of the components, and it moved slightly. This admission caused another uproar. Fisk's scales stood on end. You physically contacted the cipher, without authorization. I apologize for the breach of protocol, Maya said quickly, but it confirmed my suspicion. The cipher responds to touch. Ambassador Lai looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Captain Rice, on the other hand, was fighting to suppress a grin. High Elder Zaxos studied Maya with intensity. What exactly are you proposing, human? Maya took a deep breath. I'm proposing that the cipher isn't meant to be decoded with algorithms or scans. I think it's meant to be solved by hand, like a puzzle box. After a long moment of silence, Zaxos made a gesture that Maya couldn't interpret. Very well. Since you have already touched the artifact without catastrophic consequences, you may demonstrate your theory. Maya felt a wave of both excitement and terror wash over her. She approached the cipher as the assembled crowd watched with a mixture of skepticism, curiosity, and in some cases, what appeared to be amusement. Standing before the floating object, Maya studied the patterns intently. The geometric shapes continued their subtle shifting. She reached out carefully and placed her hands on two of the protruding components. These segments here, she said, they move in a complementary pattern. If I'm right. She gently pushed one section while pulling another. There was an audible click, and one section of the cipher rotated slightly. A gasp went through the crowd. Encouraged, Maya continued, carefully manipulating the components. With each movement, more sections unlocked and reconfigured. She worked methodically, guided by intuition and her engineer's understanding of mechanical relationships. After approximately 20 minutes of careful manipulation, during which the assembled audience had grown from a few dozen to several hundred as word spread throughout the station, Maya aligned the final component. The cipher emitted a soft hum. The geometric patterns stopped shifting and locked into place. Then, with a series of clicks, the entire object began to transform. The sphere unfolded like a blooming flower, revealing an intricate mechanism within. A soft blue light emanated from its core, and a holographic display materialized above it. The display showed star charts, mathematical equations, and symbols that no one present could immediately interpret. But one thing was clear. The Nexus cipher, the greatest mystery of the Confederation for over 3,000 years, had been solved by a human engineer in less than half an hour. The silence in the research hall was absolute. Maya stepped back from the activated cipher, suddenly aware of hundreds of alien eyes fixed upon her. High Elder Zaxos' plumage had shifted to a color she hadn't seen before, a brilliant white tinged with gold. When he finally spoke, his translated voice carried a mixture of awe and disbelief. 3,000 years. 3,000 years of our most brilliant minds applying the most advanced techniques in the galaxy. And you solved it, by hand. Maya offered an awkward smile. Sometimes the simplest approach is the one we overlook. Ambassador Lai had both hands covering his face. Captain Rice was now openly grinning. And throughout the hall, alien scientists were experiencing what would later be described as the greatest collective existential crisis in Confederation history. The age of human simplicity had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human revolution. News of the cipher's activation spread across the Confederation with unprecedented speed. Within hours, every sentient species in the galaxy was discussing what the media had dubbed the human incident. Debates raged in academic institutions, governmental chambers, and public forums about what this meant for the future of Confederation science. Maya Chen found herself unexpectedly at the center of a galactic controversy. As she entered the diplomatic conference room the following morning, she was met with a scene of barely contained chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were engaged in heated discussions, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the flood of technical jargon and emotional outbursts. "There you are," Captain Rice said, approaching her with a mix of amusement and concern. "You've become quite the celebrity overnight." Maya grimaced. "That wasn't my intention. I just saw a puzzle and solved it." "Well, your puzzle solving has thrown the entire Confederation scientific community into turmoil. Over 200 research teams have disbanded since yesterday. There are reports of prominent scientists retiring in shame." Before Maya could respond, Ambassador Li joined them, looking both exhausted and exhilarated. "Chen, I owe you an apology for doubting you, and possibly a commendation for advancing human standing in the Confederation by several decades in a single day. Or setting us back," Maya muttered. "I'm not sure they're all celebrating our contribution." As if on cue, High Elder Zaxos entered the room, his plumage now a subdued blue-gray. The chamber fell silent as he made his way to the central podium. "Honored representatives," he began, his translated voice perfectly modulated, despite what Maya suspected was considerable emotional strain. "We face an unprecedented moment in Confederation history. For millennia, we have prided ourselves on our advanced scientific methodologies, our complex analytical systems, and our technological sophistication." He paused, his gaze finding Maya in the crowd. "And yet, a newly contacted species, barely a century into their spacefaring era, has demonstrated that sometimes the most effective solution is also the most elementary." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Maya couldn't tell if they were sounds of outrage or agreement. "The data contained within the activated cipher is still being analyzed," Zaxos continued. "Initial findings suggest it does indeed contain precursor scientific knowledge of immense value. The human Maya Chen has accomplished what generations of our brightest minds could not. This reality forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. What other obvious solutions have we overlooked in our pursuit of complexity?" The tall, insectoid being that Maya recognized as Arch-Scientist Tick of the Vrex Collective rose from its seat. "High Elder, with respect, this isolated incident hardly invalidates millennia of established scientific methodology. The human success was mere luck, a primitive approach that happened to work on this particular artifact." Several delegates chittered or buzzed in apparent agreement. "Was it luck?" challenged a new voice, a gelatinous being pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as it spoke. "Or have we become so enamored with our own intellectual sophistication that we've lost the ability to see simple solutions?" The debate escalated quickly, with factions forming along unexpected lines. Some of the most technologically advanced species seemed the most receptive to the implications of Maya's discovery, while others dismissed it as an anomaly. Ambassador Lai leaned toward Maya. "This is unprecedented. Scientific paradigm shifts in the Confederation usually take decades, if not centuries. Humans have a talent for disruption," Captain Rice remarked dryly. High Elder Zaxos raised his wings for silence. "It is clear that we must investigate this phenomenon further. I hereby establish the Human Methodology Research Division, a new branch of the Confederation Science Council dedicated to understanding and integrating human problem-solving approaches." Maya felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. "Sir, they're going to study us. Like specimens." Zaxos' plumage shifted to a more vibrant blue. "No, First Officer Chen, you misunderstand. I am inviting humans to lead this division, to teach us." The Human Methodology Research Division was formed within a week, with Maya reluctantly accepting a position as co-director alongside the venerable Lethnak, a 1,000-year-old member of the crystalline Axioni species. Their first official meeting involved representatives from 30 major Confederation species, all eager, or at least professionally obligated, to understand the human approach to problem-solving. "Perhaps you could begin by explaining your methodology, First Officer Chen," Lethnak suggested, light refracting through their crystalline form in patterns that Maya had learned indicated genuine curiosity. Maya looked out at the assembled beings, feeling distinctly unprepared to explain what she considered basic common sense. "I'm not sure I used a specific methodology. I just observed the object and noticed its mechanical properties." "But how did you know to try physical manipulation?" asked a reptilian scientist. "Our scans showed no clear evidence of movable components." "Sometimes you have to try the obvious before moving to the complex," Maya explained. "In human engineering, we have a saying, 'Keep it simple, stupid.' It's a reminder that overcomplicating solutions often leads to failure." "You deliberately embrace stupidity?" asked a confused avian researcher. Maya suppressed a smile. "Not exactly. We value elegance in simplicity. The most efficient solution is often the least complicated one." This concept seemed to deeply disturb many of the assembled scientists, who had built entire careers on developing increasingly complex approaches to problem-solving. "But simplicity is primitive," objected a multi-appendaged being whose name Maya couldn't pronounce. "Advanced civilizations naturally progress toward complexity as they evolve." "Do they?" Maya challenged. "Or do we sometimes mistake complexity for advancement? In human history, many of our greatest breakthroughs came from simplifying existing systems, not complicating them." The discussion continued for hours, with Maya finding herself explaining concepts that humans took for granted: trial and error, intuitive leaps, physical experimentation, and what one human engineer had once called the sacred act of just trying stuff to see what happens. By the end of the session, half the alien scientists seemed intrigued, while the other half appeared deeply unsettled. Lethnak, however, was positively vibrating with excitement, a literal phenomenon for their crystalline species. "This is revolutionary," they declared. "We must put these principles to the test immediately. I propose we apply human methodology to another unsolved challenge, the Voidgate anomaly." Maya had been briefed on the Voidgate, a mysterious spatial phenomenon discovered near the galactic core. For centuries, ships attempting to navigate through it had either disappeared or emerged with their systems scrambled and crews experiencing temporal distortions. "Are you sure that's wise?" Ambassador Lai asked. "The Voidgate is one of your most dangerous unsolved mysteries." "Precisely," Lethnak responded. "And we have applied our most sophisticated analytical techniques to it for over 400 years without progress. It seems the perfect candidate for, what did you call it?" "Keeping it stupid." "Simple," Maya corrected with a sigh. "Keeping it simple." 2 weeks later, Maya found herself aboard the Confederation research vessel Empirical Truth, approaching the Voidgate anomaly. A team of human engineers and scientists had joined her, along with representatives from 12 Confederation species. The Voidgate itself was visually underwhelming, a region of space that appeared slightly distorted, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. But sensor readings showed intense gravitational fluctuations and temporal inconsistencies that defied conventional physics. Dr. Eliza Morgan, a human physicist specializing in space-time anomalies, studied the readings with fascination. "The Confederation approach has been to develop increasingly complex shield harmonics to try to stabilize the passage, right?" Scientist Fursk, a mantis-like being with multiple sensory appendages, confirmed this. "Yes, our latest attempt involved a 73-layered quantum field matrix calibrated to 16 different temporal frequencies." "And that didn't work?" Dr. Morgan asked. "The test probe disappeared, as did all previous attempts." Dr. Morgan exchanged glances with Maya. "Have you ever tried not shielding at all? Just sending something through without any protective measures?" The alien scientist stared at her in what Maya was beginning to recognize as universal disbelief. "That would be suicide," one finally responded. "Maybe," Dr. Morgan conceded. "But what if the shields themselves are causing the problem? What if the Voidgate reacts negatively to artificial fields?" This suggestion prompted a heated debate that lasted hours. The Confederation scientists insisted that their protective measures were essential, while the human team argued for a minimalist approach. Finally, Maya proposed a compromise. "Let's send a simple probe, minimal power, no shields, just basic recording equipment. If it makes it through safely, we'll have data. If not, we've lost nothing but a basic probe. After much reluctance, the Confederation scientists agreed. A small, unpowered probe was prepared and launched toward the anomaly. As it entered the void gate, everyone held their breath. Seconds ticked by, then minutes. Just as they were about to declare the experiment another failure, their sensors detected an object emerging from the other side of the anomaly. It was the probe, intact and transmitting data. The control room erupted in excitement. As the probe's data was analyzed, a pattern emerged. Every previous attempt had failed because the complex shielding technology had interfered with the natural properties of the void gate. The anomaly wasn't dangerous. It was simply incompatible with certain energy signatures. Dr. Morgan's simple approach had solved a 400-year-old mystery in a single afternoon. Within months, human problem-solving methods began spreading throughout the Confederation. The simplicity revolution, as it came to be known, disrupted thousands of years of established scientific dogma. Some researchers resisted, clinging to their complex methodologies and dismissing human approaches as primitive luck. But the results were undeniable. Problems that had stymied alien civilizations for generations were being solved at an unprecedented rate. Human engineers, once viewed as technological infants, were now being recruited by species whose scientific traditions predated human civilization by millennia. 6 months after the void gate breakthrough, Maya attended a formal ceremony at Confederation headquarters. The Human Methodology Research Division had become one of the most prestigious institutions in the galaxy, with a waiting list of alien scientists eager to learn what they now called Chen's approach. Much to Maya's embarrassment, High Elder Zaxos, his plumage now permanently displaying the gold-tinged white that Maya had learned indicated profound respect, addressed the gathered dignitaries. For too long, the Confederation prided itself on the complexity of its solutions. He declared, "We mistook elegance for simplicity, sophistication for effectiveness. The humans have taught us a valuable lesson, one that will reshape our approach to knowledge for generations to come." After the ceremony, Maya found herself standing once again before the Nexus cipher, now permanently displayed in a position of honor. Its internal mechanisms were visible through its open structure, a constant reminder of how a simple approach had unraveled one of the galaxy's greatest enigmas. "Does it ever bother you?" asked a voice beside her. Maya turned to find Lethnak, their crystalline form gleaming in the soft light. "What?" That 3,000 years of our best efforts were rendered obsolete by a human who just tried the obvious. Maya smiled. "It's not about obsolescence. It's about perspective. Your civilizations developed incredible technologies and complex methodologies that humans couldn't have dreamed of. We just happened to retain something you'd forgotten along the way." "And what is that?" "Sometimes you need to put down the scanner and just use your hands." Lethnak's crystalline form refracted light in what Maya now recognized as laughter. Indeed, the Confederation is learning to balance complexity with simplicity, advanced theory with basic intuition. It's a new age for galactic science. "And for human-alien relations," Maya added. As they stood contemplating the open cipher, Maya reflected on how a simple puzzle-solving instinct had forever changed humanity's place in the galaxy. The greatest mysteries didn't always require the most sophisticated solutions. Sometimes they just needed someone willing to try the obvious first. The human simplicity revolution would continue to reshape galactic science for centuries to come, a testament to the unique perspective that Earth had brought to the stars. Not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through the humble recognition that sometimes the straightforward approach is the one that works best. In the vastness of the cosmos, filled with civilizations whose scientific traditions spanned millennia, humanity had found its unique contribution: the courage to keep it simple, the resistance and reconciliation. 1 year after Maya Chen's historic solution to the Nexus cipher, humanity's influence throughout the Confederation had grown exponentially. Human engineers and problem solvers were now highly sought-after consultants, with Earth's universities struggling to meet the demand for graduates willing to work with alien research teams. But not everyone in the galaxy welcomed this paradigm shift. On the fringes of Confederation space, a movement was forming. Scientists, academics, and traditionalists who viewed the human simplicity revolution as a threat to millennia of established knowledge. They called themselves the Complexity Preservation Coalition, and they were determined to prove that sophisticated methodologies remained superior to human intuition. Maya was reviewing reports in her office at the Human Methodology Research Division when Captain Reyes entered, looking concerned. "We've got a situation," he said without preamble. "The Auxiliar Asteroid Research Station has gone dark." Maya looked up sharply. "Isn't that where Dr. Morgan was implementing the new navigation protocols?" Reyes nodded grimly. The station was applying human-designed solutions to the asteroid's unstable orbit. According to preliminary reports, something went catastrophically wrong. The coalition is already using it as evidence that human methods are dangerous. "That doesn't make sense," Maya said, rising from her desk. "Eliza's work was thoroughly tested. What's our response?" High Elder Zaxos has called an emergency council meeting. As co-director of the division, your presence is requested. The council chamber was tense when Maya arrived. Representatives from 27 species were engaged in heated debate, with the coalition's spokesperson, a tall, spindly being named Proctor Kex, dominating the conversation. "Clear evidence that simplistic approaches lead to disaster," Kex was saying, gesturing with elongated appendages at a holographic display of the asteroid station. The human Morgan's streamlined protocols fail to account for quaternary gravitational harmonics. Our traditional methods would have prevented this catastrophe. High Elder Zaxos noticed Maya's entrance and gestured for her to join the central platform. His plumage was a troubled gray-blue. "First Officer Chen," he acknowledged. "Proctor Kex claims that human methodology is responsible for the Auxiliar Station incident." Maya studied the holographic display, her brow furrowed. "I'd need to see the actual data before drawing conclusions. Where's Dr. Morgan? Is she safe?" All personnel were evacuated, Kex stated dismissively, but the station's primary research cores were lost. Decades of work, sacrificed on the altar of human simplicity. Something about this didn't add up. Maya had reviewed Morgan's protocols herself. They were elegant but thorough. "I request permission to investigate personally," Maya said. Kex made a dismissive gesture. "The evidence is already clear. The coalition will be publishing a comprehensive analysis by tomorrow's cycle." "That seems unusually fast for a thorough investigation," Maya observed. High Elder Zaxos' plumage rippled slightly. "I agree with First Officer Chen. A proper investigation requires time and direct observation. I will authorize an immediate expedition to the Auxiliar sector." Kex's posture stiffened, but he offered no further objection. 24 hours later, Maya found herself aboard the Confederation Swift, a research vessel designed for rapid deployment. Dr. Eliza Morgan, looking exhausted but determined, had joined the mission. "I don't understand what happened," Morgan said as they approached the debris field that had once been the research station. The gravitational stabilization protocols were working perfectly during all tests. Maya studied the sensor readings. "Something's not right. These debris patterns don't match a gravitational failure." Using the ship's tractor beams, they retrieved several key components from the station's core systems. As the engineering team began their analysis, a pattern emerged that confirmed Maya's suspicions. "This wasn't a failure of the protocols," she announced, pointing to the evidence displayed on the lab's main screen. "The station's systems were deliberately sabotaged. Someone inserted a cascading error into the gravitational equations, sophisticated enough to bypass security, but crude enough to cause catastrophic failure." Morgan looked shocked. "Sabotage? But who ruled?" She didn't finish the sentence. They both knew the answer. "We need to get this information back to the Council," Maya said grimly. The emergency session of the Confederation Council was even more crowded than the previous one. High Elder Zaxos presided, his plumage now a sharp, attentive gold as Maya presented her findings. "The evidence is conclusive," she stated, displaying the recovered code sequences. The auxiliary station was deliberately sabotaged to make it appear that human methodologies were at fault. Proctor Kex rose in protest. This is absurd. The human is fabricating evidence to protect her reputation and that of her primitive methodologies. The code signatures are traceable, Dr. Morgan countered, stepping forward. They originate from a laboratory affiliated with the coalition. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Kex's outer carapace paled visibly. Zaxos raised his wings for silence. These are serious accusations that require investigation. If proven true, they constitute not only sabotage, but an attempt to undermine the scientific integrity of the Confederation itself. Maya faced Kex directly. Why? Why go to such lengths to discredit human approaches? For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then Kex spoke, his translated voice carrying a mixture of defiance and resignation. Do you understand what your simplicity revolution has done? Entire scientific traditions, developed over thousands of years, rendered obsolete overnight. Researchers who dedicated their lives to developing complex methodologies now questioned, their life's work dismissed as unnecessary complication. Maya hadn't considered this perspective, the personal toll that rapid paradigm shifts could take on those invested in the old ways. Science isn't about preserving traditions, she said, but her tone was gentler now. It's about finding truth, no matter where it leads. Easy for you to say, Kex replied. Your species didn't build millennia of knowledge only to be told you were overthinking everything. High Elder Zaxos intervened, his plumage shifting to a thoughtful purple. Perhaps both perspectives have merit. The value of human approaches doesn't invalidate the achievements of traditional Confederation science. Both complexity and simplicity have their place. Maya nodded slowly. The best solutions often combine both, the depth of established knowledge with the fresh perspective of simple approaches. A balanced methodology. Kex asked, sounding skeptical but less hostile. Exactly, Maya said. Not human methods versus Confederation methods, but a new synthesis that takes the best of both. High Elder Zaxos' plumage brightened. First Officer Chen, you once again demonstrate why humans have become so valuable to the Confederation. You found the simple solution to a complex social problem. In the days that followed, the Human Methodology Research Division was reorganized into the Integrated Methodological Institute, dedicated not to replacing traditional approaches, but to finding the optimal balance between complexity and simplicity, between established wisdom and fresh perspective. The saboteurs were identified and faced Confederation justice, but Proctor Kex and the legitimate members of the coalition were invited to participate in the new institute, bringing their expertise and concerns to the table. As Maya observed the former rivals now working together in the Institute's main laboratory, she reflected that perhaps the greatest human contribution to galactic science wasn't simplicity itself, but the ability to bridge divides and find common ground. To recognize that progress comes not from rejecting the past, but from building upon it with new insights. The simplicity solution had evolved into something more nuanced and powerful, a true synthesis of the galaxy's collective wisdom.